I'm joined now by constitutional lawyer Bruce Fein for more on what happened. As we heard, new Attorney General starts next week. Was this simply an exercise? What did we learn from it?
Well, I think it's important because it indicates what kind of privileges or silence William Barr, as Attorney General, confirmed by the Senate, would advance. I lived both through Watergate and President Nixon, Iran-Contra issue, working with Congress when President Reagan waived. He did not assert any privilege with regard to communications with the president about selling arms to Iran in exchange for hostages and ultimately diversion of funds to the Nicaraguan resistance. And the claim of privilege, in my judgment, was faulty and bogus. Now, why does that matter? In my judgment, the key information that's going to be relevant to whether or not the White House has corrupted or compromised the Justice Department is whether the president is asking the acting Attorney General or the official Attorney General that their loyalty should be to him, like Mr. Comey testified he was asked when he was FBI director, and whether or not Mr. Trump was seeking to obtain some kind of commitments before there was actual nomination or selection. We don't know anything about that because Mr. Whitaker claimed silence. I believe that he would not succeed if this went to litigation before. There has been litigation, United States versus Nixon, in which the president didn't even have one vote in favor of an assertion of privilege in a comparable context. But that's what's going to be key here. Now, it's true that the Democrats said, well, afterwards, we want you to come back with some more formal invocation of the privilege. But in my judgment, it's going to be stale at that point, and no one will care because probably we'll have a new Attorney General at that time. Well, but if we're looking forward, and I apologize for interjecting here, it sets kind of a tone of what we can expect with regard to Mr. Barr, who I believe also will come and say, I'm not going to tell you anything at all about my conversations with the president, even though we've had experience in the United States, and I know about it. Attorney General was conspiring with the president to obstruct justice. His name was John Mitchell, and we know those conversations can be quite relevant to a criminal investigation.
Well, I was going to ask you what William Barr, what we can expect with him in terms of the Mueller investigation.
Well, I think he's already gone out of his way to say, I'll only yield the information that he provides me in his report, what I believe is proper and appropriate. He calls it, he says that he wants to maximize sunshine, but he says, ultimately, I'm going to decide. Again, in my judgment, there is no privilege that the executive branch has to withhold information from Congress. And people forget, Congress can keep information in executive session. They can keep it secret. And in fact, the history of congressional secrecy is far superior to executive secrecy. There was a former director of the CIA, George Tenet, who testified there that the executive branch leaks far more than the congressional branch. So it isn't automatic then when you communicate with the Congress, it's automatically in the public domain, because there's sources and methods that you may want to conceal. But Congress has got to get this information if it wants to go forward and ensure that we have an uncompromised, uncorrupt system of justice.
We keep hearing all these reports that the Mueller investigation is closer to being finished. What are you hearing? Or can we expect some final report in the next few weeks?
In the near future? I think the idea is preposterous. Number one, we have the Roger Stone trial that's going to be held at some time, which will take a while. But most importantly, we still don't have the testimony of Mr. Trump. He's the one who's the focus of the investigation. He hasn't said a single word other than he says this is a witch hunt without otherwise giving any information. And until Mr. Trump's information and deposition is confronted and given, there's not going to be a conclusion to this investigation. Think it from Mr. Mueller's point. He's appointed to investigate the biggest issue in all the land. And the chief target, focus, whether you call him a criminal target or not, is the president. And he fishes a report and he never even talks to the president. That doesn't look like anything other than a whitewash. And Mr. Mueller did not accept this position to have his reputation tarnished.
Expert analysis as always. Bruce Fein, thank you so much.
Thank you.